Went for a quick little 5-minute drive. Choke is turned off now. Welcome back to Living with a Classic. We're here with this XJ6, which you've seen a lot on the channel last year, and you just saw a couple of videos on rebuilding the front suspension. Last year was a bit of a mad dash getting this thing ready to drive 1,000 kilometers one way to a meet, and that all went well, but we never really finished setting up the chokes. So they turned off as they should. This is a US spec car, California car, has Stromberg carbs with automatic water chokes. So they turn off all the way, however, they don't turn on enough. There is a bimetal that's a spring, and you can turn it one way or the other to set the chokes. So we never bothered with it because it was pretty warm and said it fired up. You could sort of pump the pedal a little bit and it would fire up. However, once we got to our destination, it was rainy and cold and pretty much exactly like today. Today is 12 degrees right now and light drizzle, lovely summer weather. However, it doesn't really like to start then. So I'm going to demonstrate that now, and then I'm going to attempt to adjust it, and hopefully it all works, and hopefully we can just get it a little bit better because we're very, very close. If it's just like 5 degrees warmer out, it fires right up. But once it gets, below 15 degrees Celsius, it doesn't really like to get going. It's completely cold now. It's been sitting here for a couple days, and I just connected up the battery. So fire it up just to show you guys what it's like now. Not going to run it for very long because we need to drain the coolant system a little bit to get the chokes apart. Just wait for that fuel pump, and you push the throttle once to set the choke. You see it wants to, but if you go like this, you sort of pump it, because it's like an SU carb, the Stromberg. So if you gently pump it like this, you will lift the piston a tiny bit, and that will richen it up. You see, I can just get it going. Do that a couple times and it will get going. So not as it should be. Let me show you what we're going to do under the engine. I did actually just fire it up one more time just because I don't want it to be, if it was flooded or anything, it really wouldn't be. But just to, when we do our test for a seat, it runs, it barely has an idle, and things are not that great. So let's turn it off, and I'll show you what's going on. Here are the Stromberg carbs. They were completely rebuilt last summer. And everything else works really well. This car runs really smoothly. It has good power for being a US spec car and all of that. So here are the two chokes. Here and behind this plate here. So these little screws here, you can adjust the plate behind here. And there is a little bolt there that you remove, and this is the water that circulates through it. That's why we need to drain out a little bit of coolant, just get below the inlet manifold, basically. And this does two things. So it opens enrichment for more fuel through a separate passage in the carb. It also does a thing down here. That is your regular idle adjustment. That is your fast idle, and that has a little bracket there that acts on a plunger in here. So that's why you come home, the car is warm, and you turn it hot, and you turn it off. That plunger is all the way inside, so you have a low, regular idle, hot idle. Then the next day when you want to fire it up and it's cold, you push the throttle once. That plunger goes down, and it raises the idle, sets the choke mixtures and everything, and then it goes and it fires up. And then as soon as you start driving and you have your foot on the accelerator, as the car warms up, all of this will move inside, and then you'll feel the plunger go inside. So that's how you can feel the chokes are off, that plunger there is pretty deep inside the hole. And then when the chokes are set, it should be out, if it's really cold, pretty much flush with it. So I'm going to just push the car back a tiny bit. We'll get it a little bit up in the air. Drain some of the coolant. Take these off. We're going to mark with a pen where they are now, the position of them against, there's a plastic there. Mark the position I'm going to take one off because I don't remember which way they're wound, and then we'll figure out which way is richer and which way is leaner, and then move both a little bit, put it all back together, and see if that helps. I've trained it enough to remove this bolt here, and here's what it looks like. Let me get the light in a little bit closer for you guys. So basically the water circulates around here, and then the heat transfers on this, and on the other side is that bimetal. So you see there are a couple of, it's hard to see this, but a couple of marks lining it up. A mark there and a mark there, and then there's the original factory mark over there. And this is where we had set it so it would turn off. So I'm going to make a little bit of a mark there where we are now. I'll take it apart and I'm going to see which way the coil is wound because I don't remember. And then we'll figure out which way you need to turn it to get a little bit richer. But at least we have a starting point, so we're not doing this completely blind. But let me take that apart and I'll show you what it looks like. It's just these little screws over here. Here we have it off. That is the mark I made where it was. And this is the way the spiral goes. So then I need to just have a play around with this and remember which way. That is the way for more choke. You saw that little lever move down. So I think right there is, I need two hands to check this, but I think that is full, pretty much full choke right there. And then it goes up to turn it up. And that makes sense because this coil contracts when it gets warmer and then it turns it off, which means the way I have it set, I need to turn this thing clockwise to richen it. So I'll put this back together. We'll turn it a little bit clockwise. There's a factory mark there. We might turn it just to there. And I'm going to do the same thing to the other one. Don't need to take that one apart, but just need to move that a little bit clockwise. And then we'll fire it up with we have half a coolant in there. We'll just fire it up for a second. Just make sure that it is better before I fill up the coolant system. Otherwise we can tweak these a tiny bit and get it to start well cold. I mean, it's a compromise, starting well cold, yet turning off when it's warm. So let me fiddle with that a bit and then we'll try firing this thing up. I moved the other one. I didn't take it apart because I know which way to turn it now. I just made a mark there and just loosened the nuts and used the whole housing to turn it a little bit. I think that's how we can do adjustments on this one a little bit later if we need to once the coolant system is full. But for this time I just had to take it apart because I didn't remember which way the coil went. Also remembering some things from last year, this choke, this bimetal is a little bit lazier than that one. It doesn't work as well. So I haven't turned this one that much because this one's more important. It turns off, but I turned this one a little bit more. Because if you think about it, on a carburetor V12, which has very similar carbs on it, only half the carbs have choke, and that's fine. So this is just a summer car, so as long as it just starts on the first try, and then it's fine for the rest of the day. So I got this back together. I have the hose tightened up in the bottom as well. Let's reconnect the battery and just see how it fires up now. It's not stone cold, but it's definitely not warm. So we'll see how it does. Set the choke once. I haven't touched the fast idle settings or anything like that, so they'll have to be adjusted later. But let's just see if it fires up and it has idle close to 1,000 RPMs, and let's see if it's just a bit better. Let's see how that goes. Pretty good. Alright. Yeah. Might need a little bit more. I'm just going to turn up the fast idle just a tiny bit, the choke idle, and see if that makes a difference. If not, we need to turn them a little bit more. One turn on that idle screw. That sound you're hearing is an idler pulley I need to have a look at. Definitely no lean backfire or something like that. I think I can be pretty happy with that. Turn it off, let it sit for a bit, fill up the coolant, and then we'll fully warm it up, make sure the choke turns off. And if it does, we'll just have to wait overnight and see if it actually fires up tomorrow. Went for a quick little 5-minute drive. Choke is turned off now. And that's pretty good idle. It's running very, very nicely. So that part seems to work. Let me just show a couple things. How can you tell that the choke is turning off? Well, the plunger there that goes out, that's supposed to be really far in, so feel that that is far in. And then what I've done is, the idle was a little bit on the high side, so I just loosened that a little bit till it wasn't making contact with the plunger, and then I tightened up on both so it just makes contact with the plunger. So that should be pretty good now. Let's just see what it's like tomorrow. So even if the idle would be a little bit lower, let's say 700 RPM when it starts to cold, it only takes like 30 seconds or so and it picks that up. So that is fine. And yeah, I'm gonna let this thing fully cool down now, and we'll see what it's like when it's fully cold. But now, yeah, everything is nice and warm. We'll let it sit. It's about 9.5, 10 hours later, and it's evening now, and it's definitely cold to the touch. I wouldn't say the engine is ice cold, but it's definitely fully cooled down. Let's see how it fires up now. We'll do the same thing as before. We'll give it one pump of the gas, set the choke. Let the pump do its thing. Yeah, not perfect. Could use a little bit more choke, I think. Let me see if I can turn it and give it a little bit more, and then we'll see how it runs. And I think we have to check it tomorrow morning again. I loosened the top screws here, and with that I was able to twist this just a tiny bit more. So let's fire it up now and see if that makes a difference. Same thing, we'll pump it once, and let's see. I would like for it to be a tiny bit higher, but let's give it a minute or so and see what it does. And like I said, the most important thing is it starts and that it turns off. Because I mean that was a very easy start. No problems at all. I'll have it run for a little bit, see what happens, and possibly take it for a little bit of a drive. It's been running for about 2 or 3 minutes. Idle's picked up a little bit. We're at 700-800, something like that. Temperature gauge starting to move. I haven't blipped the throttle or anything yet, because you technically need to do that to start releasing the choke, but I'm going to like get a little bit more warmth inside it. Good feel. It's starting to get warm. Let it sit for a little bit longer, then blip it and see if it starts turning off. But, otherwise, I mean, this engine, I got these carbs set, like the main part set really well last summer. It runs really smoothly, and it's a wonderful running, really nice driving example of an XJ6. Just a tiny bit of issue with the cold start. But that's hopefully fixed now. It's a pretty cold and damp morning. As you can see, the only thing I've done is connected up the battery, and I moved the throttle once and just checked that the plunge that we talked about is all the way out. So choke seems to be on, or not all the way out, but pretty far out. So let's see how she does. This is exactly like one of those mornings last summer. It had issues starting. Let's see. Not too bad. I wouldn't call it perfect yet, but we're getting somewhere. I'm gonna let it run for a couple minutes and we'll see what it's like. It's about 30 seconds later and we're up to about 700 RPM. So put it in gear. It's definitely gonna run. Well, I might tweak it a little bit more. I'm also just gonna test drive it fully a couple days and see what it's like. But it definitely starts now. It starts on the first try. It's not gonna be perfect with these chokes, but it's a lot better. Anyways, that's going to be it for this video. I might do a little bit more tweaking of it. We'll see. I'm going to drive it a little bit more. But really the most important thing is it starts. Maybe that was a little bit low, but with a car like this on a cold morning, I mean, this is a car that it is just, this owner summer car is always garage kept in a warm garage. So it's very rare that it ever is this cold. That's really just when it's out at a summer meet that it's going to. And if it's a cold morning. So this thing will start, and worst case, you'll have to maybe wait 30 seconds before you drive away, which isn't really that bad. You should do that anyways to let the car, oil and fluids and things circulate. Bimetals are definitely they're a little slow on this thing. Definitely worn, and that happens. You could probably go in and maybe modify them or get different ones. There is a manual conversion kit you can get. However, it's pretty pricey at about $400 per carb before you get it here. So, I mean, that's a bit of money. So we got it working now. And I can show you, I just turned it off like a second ago. So it's gonna, you see, it is pretty good. So it's just that initial first start where you gotta just crank it just a little bit, and then I just gave it a little bit of throttle right when it caught, and I held it up, and then it was fine. So I'm gonna call this solved for now. Anyways, if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and share it with friends. If you're not already subscribed to the channel, please do subscribe to the channel. It really does help out a lot. Till next time, I'm Adam. This was Living with a Classic. I'll see you soon.